last question, she was saying that the big theme of this conference is around leadership at times of great global instability. And that's exactly where we're heading in this next panel, which is sponsored by ASIAD. We've assembled 3 senior leaders to tackle the issue of leadership through seismic global instability. And please would you welcome to the stage the panelists and the moderator, Ryan Patel, Drucker School of Management.
How's everybody doing? We're going to be interactive. Let's go. Just to let you know, I'm setting the stage. I'm honored to have these 3 great leaders. Let me introduce you to everybody. Judy Marks to my left, Chair and CEO of Otis. Corey Berry, CEO of Best Buy. And Abdul Rahman Al-Hatmi, Chief Executive Officer of ASIAD. Welcome.
Thank you.
Great to be here.
They're not nervous, but they don't know what I'm going to ask them. But I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go first round of questions. I want them to highlight what I think is important of what they've done in the past. Again, they don't know exactly what I'm saying. In the second part, we're going to talk about that thought leadership that I think we're here to listen to and see what's going forward. So let's see. I'm going to have to start with you, Corey.
Have at it.
You know, there's this thing called retail, Black Friday sales, Cyber Monday, something kind of big in your industry, billions of dollars being sold. Heard of it?
I've heard of it.
Okay. Well, you've done a great job with the low inventory compared to other retailers. And what I want to ask you through this kind of global instability, how has the consumer changed? What do you see now, and what do you see moving forward?
Yeah, so I'm going to start at the highest level. We definitely see a consumer who's looking for joy, which sounds funny, but after the last couple of years, it's a consumer who's willing to go out of their way to try to find a little bit of joy in their life. So that's one part. But it's against a backdrop of indicators that are as diverse and not correlated as anything I've ever seen in my 23-year career in retail. Right, you still have relatively good consumer balance sheets, you still have a jobs number that's pretty darn good. But on the flip side, you have inflation. And while it might be moderating a bit, it is inflation on the basics: food, fuel, and lodging.
But how do you keep your team? Because you just said it's very difficult with these variables that's showing these numbers and people don't know. How do you manage your team to ensure that you're all on the same page?
Yeah, I'm going to say this flippantly. You don't tell your team what to do. One of the most wonderful things, one of our core values at Best Buy, it was started more than 55 years ago by our founder, Dick Schultz, is learning from challenge and change. That is the nature of retail. And we've gotten very clear, our purpose at Best Buy is to enrich lives through technology. So if you surround yourself with an incredibly educated, diverse, thoughtful, specialized team with lots of different backgrounds, you know your purpose, you know your values, you unleash your team to get as close as possible to the customer and then make decisions in the moment. And one of the things that I'm passionate about is you start to reward adaptability, not perfection. And the more you can focus on adaptability versus perfection, we're going to get it wrong. Like, I know my forecast is wrong. Don't tell anyone else that. But you try your best, right? But by its nature, you're going to be wrong. And so you're much better served saying we need to move fast and adapt quickly and apologize later and course correct if something goes wrong.
But you were, and back to the consumers and back to, Judy, I want to ask you this. I saw something written by you, I want to get it right. A world with 8 billion people and growing. And I'm going to ask.
Growing up, too.
Growing up, too. Yeah. So in this instance, how are we going to thrive to ensure we get to those growing up and 8 billion people?
Yeah, so, the world continues to grow, and we talk about the world growing in a taller, faster, and smarter way. And obviously taller because we believe in the thesis of urbanization. We're seeing it play out globally, and if any of you look around today, no matter where you are watching this or in this room, you see cranes, you see construction, you see robust movement of people moving to urbanization. But to do that, you have to say, what do they need? And while Corey is right, we can't make errors. We're in the life safety business, and 2 billion people a day touch our product. And most of you do it without giving a single thought to getting in one of our elevators or escalators.
I'm laughing, but as soon as you say that, I promise you, now you'll pay attention to what she just said. Next time you go on an elevator, you'll see Otis, and then you'll say, Ryan told me.
That's right. But because of that, it really gets you down to core values. And we're about as distributed as a company as you can be. And we do, just like you, Corey, we trust our local teams. We have 1,400 branches across the globe, and they have to be there to service your condominiums, your apartments, as well as your office buildings, your retail space, everything. And again, we do this in a way where I can't train or control any single passenger or anyone who uses our product. So it is all about the cities growing. It's about how do we now lead to create cities for ourselves and the next generation so they have a place to thrive.
And not to make this sound a quick follow-up, and it's a big question, you know, you're talking about values, and, you know, I do want to bring up the Russia-Ukraine and what you recently did on that value decision that you made. Can you kind of share just a real, I know.
I'll stay short.
Okay.
So, you know, here's the challenge when you're a global enterprise and you care deeply about your 68,000 colleagues. You balance that with what we call our absolutes, which are really our intuitive and our extreme and exposed values that we share with our suppliers, with our customers, with everyone, which is all about safety, quality, and ethics. And on the ethics, it's about doing the right thing. We have a responsibility in Russia and in Ukraine to do two things. One is take care of the safety of our colleagues and our passengers, and second, to follow the rule of law. So as long as we felt we were following the sanctions that were imposed, which we did, we found a way, we think gracefully, and we did exit our Russia business. We sold it to another Russian business so that the people and our several thousand colleagues, our manufacturing facility there, could continue to support their lives and the passengers they support. And our Ukraine team, which remains with us, which we have hopefully taken strong care of, whether they stayed in country or left and became part of Otis somewhere else, they know how we care. And the reason it's important, Ryan, really simply is because when you make leadership decisions like this, everyone's watching. Your board's watching, appropriately they're involved. The media is watching, the countries are watching, but most importantly, your other colleagues are watching and saying how you respond in this situation is how they can trust you to respond in future.
And, you know, that country aspect and this public and private partnerships, you know where I'm going next. You know, they set this up really easily for me. You know, consumers, public safety, back to supply chain and crossing. You all recently, $3 billion from Oman to Abu Dhabi, right, in the railway investment. You know, I'd love for you to share a little bit about what Judy has kind of said, these decision-making leadership and how you have to work among countries as well.
Yeah, I think if COVID taught us something is collaboration and what we call the control tower in supply chain. A lot of countries were shut down. Borders were shut down. Flights, air cargo, air freight was also minimized, only on special charter flights. Sea transport was the only option available. So we are part of the World Economic Forum, as well as we worked with the World Economic Forum. How do we establish a supply chain, and how do we make sure that actually we're trying to minimize disruption and trying to work together collaboratively? The guys who are competing with each other in terms of the transporters and others, you know, found that actually it's very difficult to just work on their own. So we have to collaborate. And the rail project you mentioned, I think, is a good example of that. What I think is a very good example where two countries open their borders and make sure the trade flow, you know, moves between countries. That's one way of making sure the supply chain remains resilient. And what that does, of course, during pandemic, during crisis, it makes sure that the trade flow moves. And also, it also brings costs down and make sure that the whole supply chain is more reliable. And
but you also did something which was unique. What I found was the ports that you were managing 24 hours. Yeah. How you're smiling from a people perspective.
Yeah, I'll be careful.
I'm getting some laughter
I'm in the US,
that's
so
pretty hard. Repeat that again?
No, but one of the advantages we had in the region was actually our ports were operating 24 hours. There was no single disruption at all to our ports. And that gave us advantage, to be honest, when it came to we're becoming more of a distribution hub in between East and West. A lot of companies moved their boxes from China, for example, and put it in our ports. So they can serve East Africa, they can serve India, they can serve even the European countries. So they become closer to customers. So we became the inventory of the West as per se. So yeah, I mean it's a very good story what we did with the ports, and the way we did it, actually we used technology, so that's the first thing we used, but we made sure also we have enough people. So we did this the bubbles, what they call them. So we had the crews, just sticking together, go to the operation, take them out, and put them in special accommodation. So so that we don't disrupt the port's operations. That was done extensively, and if there's only one person who was infected, then the whole crew will have to be, of course, isolated. So it was very tricky.
I think you've got 3 companies here who were all essential services during the pandemic, in our own ways.
No, I mean that's what makes this conversation very interesting. If everybody can pay attention, every perspective was different, but they come back to their specific core values. That they're not different; they're the same, but how you implement them are really different. And the word team is underestimated in this. Corey, I'm going to ask you this because I've seen a couple of your interviews. I know you're very passionate about your team, but when I ask you team, the word team, what's the first thing that pops up in your mind in terms of leadership?
110,000 humans trying every day to do their best. I just don't believe anybody goes to work to just push a button, do a job. I believe there is something that resonates fundamentally in their humanity about what they do every day. You talked a little bit about the idea of being essential. You wouldn't look at a retailer and say it's essential. But the minute the pandemic hit and everyone started working from home, our teams felt like they were fulfilling their purpose to truly, honestly, enrich lives through technology. And every day you got a story. I can talk to grandma again. My kids, 5 of them, can school at home with noise-canceling headphones because they're all in one room.
Do you think that shifted? Do you think that shifted a little bit in your leadership when that occurred? Of not that you've changed, but just because of that passion that popped up?
I think what happened was you have a purpose and you know it's real. You know it in your heart. You know we really can enrich lives through technology. But the scale at which that happened overnight definitely added an emotional tact. And the truth is we actually weren't seen as an essential retailer. We moved to curbside in a span of 48 hours. And we did all of our business, completely changed the model. The humans, the 110,000, changed the model. Not because we told them how to do it. Not at all. Because they fundamentally decided that's what we're going to do.
Well, I mean, I'll be on the record and say this from your leadership and from previous leaderships there, the way your e-commerce platform has moved has been by far something is a case study in its own. I'll leave it to that.
Thank
you.
But
when 5.2 billion is being spent online on Black Friday at its highest, only getting more, what you've done is pretty a team aspect of it. And Judy, you were talking about global teams. You have to manage all kinds of different types of, I don't want to say crisis is the right word, but how do you manage the expectations for your teams when in situations like that?
Well, listen, you have to communicate. As a leader, there's nothing more important. And I think we all had to find different methods to do that once the pandemic hit. We had the additional challenge of we returned to becoming an independent company. We were a spin-off from a conglomerate that happened on April 3rd.
Tell us, if you can quickly tell the story of how in that February of last year of you being at the New York Stock Exchange and that was being kind of a roadshow.
That was about the last in-person session we had, did an equity roadshow via virtual and literally spun the company on April 3rd virtually. But what we do...
Corey's shaking her head right now.
I feel for you, deep empathy.
But the way you communicate, we started at midnight of that night, and I did a FaceTime live with 16,000 colleagues in China. And what they all did is they created their own app, and they all sat there and they rang a bell on their phones.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then we moved to Asia Pacific, and then we moved to Europe. But it really is about going back to what holds your company together. Again, for us, it matches my moral compass, but we call it our absolutes. And it's just the ability for everyone, no matter what language, and typically when we send anything out, it's in 22 languages. Yeah. No matter what language you are, no matter where you were raised, no matter even the value of basic values in life in different parts of the world, all coming together with a common culture and a common mission to keep the world moving. I mean, we started in Wuhan. Full disclosure, we maintain hospitals and elevators there, so we saw it early, and then we allowed the power of connection in our team to share those lessons. Yeah. So our China team got on with our Americas team and our Europe team before they got locked down. And now it's kind of come full circle, so it's a little amazing. And yet, the other thing you have to do, though, is be that chief cheerleader at times, that chief person that even when times look dark, as a leader, you've got to raise your team up, Ryan. You've got to tell them, listen, we've been in business 169 years. We've seen about every cycle there is. We will get through this, and we will get out of this. And as a matter of fact, we're going to get prepared to get out of it quicker than our competitors. So when you're down in the bottom at that low point, guess what? I'm going to tell you to accelerate.
Do you feel, and real quickly, do you feel that this uncertainty, because it seems like we've been in this word keeps coming for continuous, do you feel like you have to be more of a cheerleader than ever been before?
Listen, I think all you're doing is showing the art of what's possible. And people will...
But you're paying attention to it more now.
Absolutely,
okay.
And your colleagues will rally around it and just empower them.
Abdul Rahman, I would say when you think about the supply chain and the things that you had to go through with teams and the disruption, I know there's not as much disruption. I mean, there's disruption in your industry as a whole. If you had a message to that specific industry, what was the things that you would share that you would feel from a leadership perspective? Because I can tell you, being on air many times, all hell breaks loose when something breaks the canal and everything goes haywire. So, how do you stay calm and how do you ensure that industry continues to move forward?
Well, I would love to use the word plan, but plan was, as we say. It's not easy. I think we realized, of course, in the crisis we had in the pandemic, that our work touches the lives of people. So if we are responsible for security of food supplies, of necessities in the country, so if you don't act fast, if you don't bring everybody around you, and if you don't adopt that aggressiveness in your thinking and entrepreneurship, I think you wouldn't be able to have done it. We bought assets in May in 2020. 3 times the price of they were in 2019. Vessels, ships, trucks, everything, just to make sure that we actually serve our customers and make sure that our reliability stays the same, and we make sure that food is on the table of people, and the shelves in Oman were full all time because we managed to get all the ships to the origin of where the supplies are. Luckily, those ports around us did not shut down. Otherwise, that would have been a problem anyway. Even if you planned that,
wouldn't have
So I think entrepreneurship, agility, and also as our colleagues said, we have to have the right people around you. I mean, you need to have the right people around you, they support you and they act the same with the same speed and they act with the same vision on these issues.
All right, so we've got about almost 11 minutes left. I see the questions I'm going to tie them into. There's this thing I do, unfortunately, has followed me. Now I have to do it everywhere. It's called Ryan's Lightning Round. They don't know the questions I'm going to ask them. I'm going to ask them to answer it in 1 word or 1 sentence. I see smiles. Oh, yeah, this is going to be fun. I have a couple, pending and see how well we do as a team. We're going to...
Are you performance managing us?
Yes, I am actually, because I don't want the expectations to go too high. So I'm going to ask you a question. 1 word. 1 sentence, and I'll give you a little. The crowd's pretty nice. I'll give you a little leeway if you want to go a little longer, but I'm gonna read it so I don't get it wrong. And I'm gonna go in this order, so that way you don't look at each other try to buy more time. I know what you guys would do. What is the biggest?
Corey's ready.
What is the biggest lesson you learned about your leadership in the past few years? I'll say it 1 more time to give you a second. What is the biggest lesson you've learned about your leadership in the past few years?
Resilience.
It's okay to ask for help.
Entrepreneurship. Adopt entrepreneurship more aggressively.
Did you just see those 3 answers of how unique those are in their industry? I mean, just as leaders and how they adapt that. I mean, to me, it's fascinating, right? That's what is top of mind. This is not prepared, just to be clear. Or the whole thing's not prepared. They don't know. And, that's telling of what leadership is. And the resilience, right, to what you were talking about. And it's okay because it is hard to deal with. And you had to be entrepreneurship. I mean, that's a quality that needed to occur. I didn't know you were going to answer that. I could just stop here and end it, but I'm not going to. What has been a significant change as you as a leader in the last couple of years?
Are we doing the same order?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. So what happens? You sit next to me. So significant change. So something that you feel that okay, I'll make it even better. This uncertainty, right? Something changed in you. Something changed. 100%. I think it changed in all of us. Is there something that you can share that you feel like this changed me, or it either not necessarily be a better person, but something that you thought of?
I think well, I'll just keep it simple. I think you're now prepared for anything.
Anything.
Anything. I mean, let's see, global pandemic, supply chain challenges, commodity, inflation that we haven't seen since the 70s, a war in Europe, you know, what's next?
Why did you say, I don't want to know what's next. I know what's
next.
I'm calling you when it happens.
I don't want to know what's next.
But this is what it's all about, because you control what you control, you lead through it, you motivate your team, and then you learn how to accelerate.
Love it. I love it.
The amount of time and the importance of cultural resiliency.
When you say the amount of time, expand.
It is on me to be as authentic, as human, as real, to admit when we make mistakes, to ask for help. The emphasis on the cultural resiliency as much as the business resiliency at the end of the day.
You know, I feel like I've gotten to know you better. I mean, I know we've met for the first time today, but just through virtually, you know, when you already are authentic, because I believe you are, but the words you just said is you have to make sure it continues, even though you're still being you. There's a difference between that, right?
There is.
And so is there a tip that you can give that you kind of help you, remind you, again, it's still you, but it reminds you that you have that in front of your team?
Yeah, for me, it's often going out and actually just having honest conversations with others. The deeper I can go chat with the team, it just reminds you, what are other people feeling? Which then helps center you on you yourself. What are you feeling? And how do you address what might be just their concerns? Because there's times, to your point about all this change, there's times where we've said, we don't have all the answers. That's really hard for an executive leadership team to say, we don't have all the answers, but we're going to use all these smart brains to help us figure it out. And to have the courage to be authentic, because it requires a great deal of courage. It is putting your own humanity on stage. And to do that, I think the best way you can do it is to be with your team, deeply into your team, and understand fears, motivations, concerns,
but that means
and project it.
Everybody's got to make the time. Like it's a dedicated team from not just your effort, from everybody.
It is everyone.
I think, from my perspective, with the perfect storm, which we had, I mean, I get all sort of crashes in the world, starting with the pandemic, then of course the issue in Ukraine and the inflation, interest rates. I feel I'm going through business school again and doing MBA, studying the business. And how do you react to those issues? And again, I share with Judy, I think, and also even with Corey around the authenticity. I think if we don't expect the unexpected. I think that's a key word. I mean, in our industry, the freight rates just oscillating much narrower now, and the world becoming completely vague now, and you have to navigate yourself through that. That's a skill in itself to be able to navigate through uncertainty, and I think and still making money. So that's one of the learnings, I think, and I still be able to go. I'm going through MBA myself now.
You know, I see the couple of questions. I want to tie in one of them. I know it's not a part of the round, but I just like doing it. The word trust comes up, right? How do you maintain consumer trust using technology? But it could be also related. I'm going to tie the question to clients too. So, is there something? Corey, I'll come to you first because I keep going to Judy. Judy's looking at me.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to use the consumer lens. We fundamentally believe the consumer is in control. And if everything you wire is to meet the consumer no matter where they are, that to me is how you build trust. I'm not going to try to push you to a store when you want something digital. I'm not going to try to push you to chat when you want to use a phone. Like, the customer needs to be in control. And if you're there for them ubiquitously, no matter how they would like to leverage your touch points, then that feels like I have a trusting relationship with this retailer. They're not trying to snow me over. They're not trying to push me one way or another. They're just there for me. They know me, and they want to help me.
Yeah, and Judy, the tech piece side of it, of what you have on.
Yeah, so for us, it's all about taking what used to be a highly industrial and mechanical piece of equipment you're used to, and having it all be connected. So that as a passenger, you're connected. As our incredible field mechanics are connected. Our customers are connected, and everyone through IoT has real-time information on performance. And then you take it to the next level that says, okay, now that you understand how things are performing, you can do prognostics, you can do predictive activities, and you can actually create a better service. But trust you build through performance, day in and day out, no matter what occurs. I mean, we're doing 10,000 installations every day somewhere in the world of new product in a hoistway on a construction site. And we're doing 200,000 service calls every day. If I don't trust our incredible workforce to do that autonomously and eliminate the obstacles from them all over in almost 200 countries and territories, that's what builds trust. Everyday delivery, every day.
So that was a question from George. So George, thanks for the question. Abdul Rahim, I'm going to ask you another question because it came up through the audience. The idea of the supply chain demand tools, interest rates, the challenge. What are some of the keys that you've seen that you think policymakers, since you've actually done it over there, like what are some keys that you think that needs to occur around the world?
Ease the trade flows, I think, is a key word. We've seen what impact the closure of the U.S. ports in here in terms of congestion. Well, we see the zero COVID policy impact in China. To the global economy, of course, and the ports. I think making sure, planning and making sure, also learning from pandemic and planning, making sure that the trade flow stays, continues. I think that's a key word. I think from the policies, it's easier said than done because you need to invest in technology, in people, to make sure that the ports don't close and the trade flows continues. So I think that's probably a learning from the pandemic.
That's great. Now I like you three too much because I let you mess up with my lightning round and just. Now we have 2 minutes left, so now just one word, one answer. One word or a sentence. Now I won't let you all expand. How would you characterize your leadership in the face of this instability?
Accelerant.
Authentic.
Resilience.
And then, I like this one. This is good. I like this.
He likes his own question. Very proud of himself.
I love it. What does leadership mean to you?
Responsibility.
Unleashing the superpowers of others.
They stole both from me.
I was going to answer it. It's so good.
Actually, that's a good one. It's a combination, actually, of unleashing the people and trusting the people around you.
And it's interesting because you three live and breathe this, right? And if there was one, and I'll leave it to this, if no one listened to us for the last 30 minutes, which hopefully that you all have, you had one takeaway for them to walk out this room, those who were watching us live, to go, this is what you should be doing in your teams, or just being aware to be a better person, it doesn't necessarily even be leadership, because I think the word instability we will continue to face in one way or form, no matter what industry you're in. So, what would that be?
Make an impact and leave the world in a better place than you found it.
Be adaptable every day. Don't try to be right.
My message probably would go actually to the governments. The issue we have is as a result of the pandemic, there's a lot of discussion around onshoring, reshoring, and protectionism as well, especially trying to move factories and trying to source everything in things. That won't work in the long term. I think about the world as a global village. We still need each other and ensure the trade flows just maintain smooth across the globe.
I want to thank each of you. We are one community. We're one global. We're in it together. Believe it or not, if you don't want to, you just heard from these three, we are. So make that impact. I thank each of you for your time. Thank you for your honesty and letting me and making this a really free flow conversation. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much to Ryan and the panel. I love the energy from that. It was so good. And it seems like the perfect jumping off point. Go and grab a coffee.